So with the recording started, for those of you following along at home, I'm on OneDrive and in the mobile app dev folder, and there's a starter there, so if you want to follow along with the recording, you can download that, and once it's downloaded, follow along. Open it up and follow along. While you're downloading that, I have added 2 more chapter assignments to Blackboard, chapter 29 and 30. Those are due the next couple of Sundays. Chapter 28, I recommend you read that first. It's kind of an overview of transitions. Transitions are new in the latest versions, I think KitKat, if I remember right, which is like 20. So in order to use some of these things that are here, you might have to upgrade to at least 19, maybe even 20, if you're generating your new project, to use some of these transitions. And then there are 2 programs, one here in chapter 29 and one here in chapter 30 that I would like you to accomplish. I don't think we're going to talk about transitions in class. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves to them, and if you wish to apply them to an assignment somewhere for extra credit, tell me you did it and I'll probably give you some. Questions about that? Okay. Now the next thing I want to show you is a new thing that Midstate is starting to get going here, and that's Blackboard Collaborate. I don't know if any of your other instructors have talked about it. Yes, no? Anybody yes? Put your hand up. No. Okay. Now let's take a look at it, because what it'll give us an opportunity to do is solve some of your problems at home that are related to Android programming. I don't want to hear about the rest of them. All right. Any of your problems in Android at home, if you click Blackboard Collaborate, you can join our class's room, and you all can collaborate with each other. You don't need me involved. All right. What Collaborate allows us to do is basically have a Skype type session where I can share my presentation with you, or you can share your screen at home with me. We can talk as long as you have a microphone, and I do at home have a microphone and camera. We can turn the video off, the audio on, and collaborate. And that was under Course Tools in Blackboard. Anybody want to be brave and join me?
Where is it?
Under Course Tools in Blackboard. I am the only moderator. A moderator is a little different than, there are 3 levels here. There's a viewer type thing, there's a moderator, and there are presenters. You have all been entered, except you, as presenters, meaning you can authorize the presentation of your screen to somebody else's. So now I can turn on my microphone because I have them in here, and you'll be able to hear me. But because we're in the same room, you want to be careful. If Trevor turns on his sound, my microphone will pick up my voice and just put it into this infinite loop type of thing. So in here, you might not want to turn those things on. Okay, and looks like Andy's joined me, so that's cool. And all setting things going on here. This little hand down here means you have a question. It also means you've just come into the room. So Andy, you probably see Andy's hand is up. You can put your hand back down again by clicking down at the bottom of the screen. But now, with a little bit of practice on my part, let's see, jump in, get started. I want to set up my microphone. No, that'll be fine. But at some point, I can share my presentation with others. I just have to remember how to do it. And somewhere I have, yep, there's share content. And I want to either share files, or I should be able to share my screen. But I think because I only have one right now, it's thinking about that real hard. At home, I'll have 2. Nice camera. Yay! Feel like you're on the big board at the, okay. So that, I don't see it for much use here unless I get ill during class, and then maybe that doesn't sound like fun either. But I do see it as an opportunity for the weekend. All right. And remember, starting this weekend as well, I'm going to kill this now just so you've seen it. All right. I'm going to kill this. Remember that starting this weekend on Saturdays, I will be here from 9 until noon. I will have responsibility for the whole building, but my underlying premise for it all is to give you an opportunity to spend some time with me. I will probably be on my Surface, so if you don't want to come in on Saturday between 9 and noon, but you do want to chat with me, we can collaborate through my Surface. I can at least listen and see what you got going on. But I will be here not every Saturday, that Saturday before, or the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we're not open. But the other ones, most of them, I will be here. If none of you show up, I won't stop coming because I promise to keep the building open for everybody. But if none of you show up, there are a couple of weeks where I have off, where other people have volunteered, I won't come in unless you email me. You email me Friday saying I'm going to be there Saturday, then I'll be here. So remember that Saturday option that starts this week. Questions about all that? I'm still working on part 2 of your Unit 6 assignment. The first part of it's out there. I'm still working on part 2, trying to figure out what to make you do there. I think I have an idea now where it's going, but I didn't get that sorted out till about 10 minutes ago. So still working on that. So for right now, as far as I know, nobody's turned in part 1 of Unit 6 yet. So I'm not too worried about the fact that part 2 isn't out there yet. I hope to have it posted tomorrow. Okay, we don't need that. Keep that around just for later. We talked about gestures last time. And what I want to start talking about today, and my latest edition of this, I never uploaded it. That's okay. Most of the stuff I need is here. First thing I want to start with is saving the screen state, and let me show you why. I hope that this is the part 2 that I just asked you to create or to download. Make sure there's no other extra junk in here. There isn't. This is just a simple app. I'm going to run it. I think I just did. Wait for the emulator to kick in here, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, so here's my app. Pretty simple one. It's got some text across the top. That's just a text view. Here's an edit text. It's got a background color and some initial text. I've got a checkbox that we haven't used before, but they work like checkboxes in C#, and a button that's going to change those, and I think it even changes my picture down here. So I'm going to click that, and there's just a simple click event that causes some things to happen. Okay. Mickey changes, the text up here changed, my edit text changed, my checkbox is checked. Whoop-de-doo, big deal, nothing there you don't know how to do. True. But now watch what happens when I rotate the device. To rotate the device on a Mac, it's Control F12, just like it is on your Windows machines. If you press Control F12, it will rotate your device, and look what happened to my scene. The initial text went back to what it was. The background color of this, it was magenta, it changed back to yellow. The picture changed back from Donald to Mickey. Now, I didn't write code to make that happen, I promise you. Okay. But what's really bizarre in my own mind is notice that the new text in the edit text is still there and the checkbox is still checked. I can't explain that part except to say that any inputs, radio buttons, checkboxes, any of those kind of things that you have on your form, when you rotate the device, they retain their value, but not their appearance. So I can click text here again, and then press Control F12 again, and it rotates again, and it goes right back to the way it was. The reason for this is, remember that Android has the ability to have different layouts for different devices, and not only that, different orientations. So you notice when I rotated this that Mickey went to the right-hand side. Well, that's because he is in the bottom right-hand corner. And because of my layout here, my relative layout, it all looks pretty good. But it's conceivable that I might not like this layout when I'm in landscape orientation. So I could actually create a separate layout file. We haven't done this. We might. I think I have a piece of my notes on this. Create a separate layout file called landscape. And in there have the screen laid out in a different way. Well, if we were switching from portrait to landscape, we would probably want the screen to start over again because it's got all these special properties, and it's exactly what happens here. So when I rotated my view, what's happening behind the scenes is it's refreshing it. Okay, well, what about the inputs? How come those are not refreshing? It's probably a good thing, right? If it was a form and the user accidentally rotates it, you don't want to lose all that input and start over again. Good news is they've coded it that way. Why couldn't they code the rest of it that way? I don't know. So what we need here, obviously, is some way to tell Android Studio, to tell Java that, hey, when the screen rotates, I want you to save all of these important things that have happened to me on the screen so that when I come back, after I'm done rotating and you refresh the screen, I can put all that stuff back in there again. All of these things could also happen because of other things. For instance, my application might end up going to the background. And if it goes to the background, because I'm answering the phone or because I've decided I'm sick of the Mickey Mouse game, I'm going to play a different game for a while, this program goes to the background, but it doesn't necessarily stop. I know on my iPhone, I've flipped through the applications after a week and I've got 12, 15, 20 of them running at the same time. If you got enough memory, your app will stay in memory. Let's talk about that a little bit. There is a screen state resource here that I'm going to reference. Your book, the online book that I've already closed, so let me go get it again here real quick, also has a chapter that talks about it briefly. Just got to remember which one it is. Testing, the basics, overview, anatomy, application, life cycles. So chapter 10, if you're curious on a little more reading, it's not assigned, there's nothing to do. Can't force you to read it. I suppose I could, may send me some ticket questions, but then I got to answer them, and I don't want to do that. So chapter 10 has a little more information, but my notes cover it halfway decent, and this resource is pretty good. This resource is actually on the Android site, and you can read about all this stuff, but what's really important is this picture of an app's lifecycle. And what the picture really shows you is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different events that all occur automatically. We have no control over when they occur. Obviously, when you launch your activity, the onCreate method that we've been using so far automatically executes. But like the form load in Visual Studio, the onCreate actually executes before anything shows up on the screen. And I'm going to wish, and I should be able to do this. Well, let's see if this helps us out here. Let's go to chapter 10. Go to a couple of pages that talk about all the different events. Maybe it's 11. There it is. 11 is better, I think. Yep. So here's onCreate, happens right away. Then there's a restart. This is called whenever the activity is about to restart. What does it mean by restart? That means it's gone to sleep or it's stopped for whatever reason. It's getting ready to restart. Also on resume, on pause, on stop. Let me just go back to that picture. I'm going to hit my notes. I think they explain it a little bit more. And we'll try to see if, there's that same picture. See if I can get both of these going at the same time here. So here's a pretty version of it. onCreate. After onCreate comes onStart. We've written no code there. We could. Then onResume. OnResume happens whenever we pause. Notice we're running, and then for some reason we pause. Maybe the phone rang. Maybe the user decided to switch applications, go to the browser, look something up for a while. After on pause, two things could happen. Either we resume, because the user closes the phone, bringing my app back to the front, or closes the phone part of it, bringing my app back to the front, or the user actually switches back to that program. There's also a stop. Stop means your application is no longer visible, slightly different than pause. If the phone rings, there might be something that interrupts my app to make it show up on the front of the screen. Or better yet, I'm out. For me, one of my favorite apps is the timer on my phone. And so I'm out in the yard and I'm playing a game, and in the meantime, my timer's going, said, don't forget about your steaks on the grill for 7 minutes. When the timer goes off, it interrupts my game, but the game is still kind of there. The timer just sits on top of it. All right, that's kind of a pause, and then when you come back in, do you want to write some code? Then there's stop, where your application actually goes to the background. And this seems to be what's happening. No, I take that back. This is not what's happening when Mickey gets changed when I rotate my screen. Your app is still running. It's right where you left it.
It does do a pause and resume.
Pardon me?
I believe it does a pause and resume.
A pause and resume. It can, if you want to check in those. And there is a chapter there where they have you go through and put in little toast messages to let you know which of these events are occurring when. But a stop happens when your application goes to the background. If you're playing a game that's got a timer on it, I know this for a fact. You you've got 30 seconds or 2 minutes to find all the words you can. If you push that application to the background, they have written code saying on stop the timer. Maybe even on pause, stop the timer, because the user's not in charge of this app anymore. So all of these things you can use. But what's important to know is when you rotate your app or your phone, your app is actually destroyed. The app is destroyed. When it's destroyed, you recreate somehow, but how does the data come back in? I can't quite get my head around all of these things. But know that there all are these different life cycle events, and then what the book talks about, and that would be this screen. I'm going to get myself confused here. What the book talks about is some of these different, this is a foreground lifetime, you're in the front. You might be paused, but you're still in front, and you can go back on resume, so you can get into this life cycle. Then there's the visible lifetime. I'm visible, visible, visible. Oh, not anymore. But when I become visible again, on restart comes back into the picture. So if you're writing advanced apps, and this is beyond the scope of this course, you can use all of those events to control what happens when your form goes to the background. If we have enough time, I got a funny feeling we're going to run out, but if we have enough time, we might talk a little bit about MySQLite, which is the database that you can use inside of an Android application. If the phone goes to pause mode and you haven't saved the changes to the current record, you might want to do that. And so an on pause or an on stop, you might save the current record. If you're writing to a text file, users typing into notes, and you might want to, before you stop, save that. Definitely want to put it in, hey, just before you destroy me, save this, but the destroy is supposed to happen very, very quickly. And if your app needs to save lots of stuff, then that isn't going to work very well. What we want to do is make sure that we capture this. After we start, we might want to see if there is a stored instance. What Android does is every time we pause, or just before we pause, it can, if we tell it to, save the current state. What it's basically doing when it saves the current state, it saves whatever information we tell it to, puts it out into a temporary little, I don't know, settings file for your app, just a temp file that has whatever you decide to save in it. That way, if you destroy, this save file will have the stuff in it, and you can go get it by restoring. So we're going to learn how to do that today and use it in this app to kind of keep the Mickey picture in there and to keep maybe the color of this and the text of that, so that when we flip the phone, it doesn't lose that information. You can save as much stuff as you want, as long as it's simple input, simple colors, simple picture type of things. If you want to do more complicated stuff, then this on instance state doesn't work very well. It doesn't allow you to save an object, for instance. If you wanted to have a loan information object saved, then you got to do your own saving somehow. This is used for simple stuff. relatively. So if you got a really complicated game like his 3D thing, probably not going to have enough in a simple state process to save all that.
They say any primitive data type can be saved.
Can be, absolutely, but
That's
not
it.
necessarily using this technique.
Yeah, any primitive data type can be saved.
They change it?
Yeah.
Okay. Happens to me all the time. They keep changing stuff. So how do we do this? Let's move into that now. We need to create an on-save instance state. Whenever your device configuration changes, the orientation, these are other reasons that you could change, your device could basically restart. I changed languages. Well, I'm going to want all the labels and all the text to be in the new language, so it's going to completely refresh my app when that happens. So if the user, while your app is running, goes into the settings and say, okay, from now on I want to speak Spanish, when you come back to your app, all those colors and text and everything will be back to its original state. The app will have launched. Again, how these inputs retain their values, I haven't read it. It's magic. But again, I'm glad they do. So what we need to do is save all of our changes. We don't want our user experience interrupted just because we're rotating the screen. One thing you can do is in your layout file, say, set the screen orientation to portrait. When you do that, the user rotates the screen, nothing happens. It just sits there, flat. Did any of you guys with the Windows, when you rotate it, it gets stuck? Mine at home, when I rotated on my old crusty dusty, whatever that machine is, it never updated it and made it horizontal, never did it. It rotated the screen, but it never updated the display. So the emulator there never updated. I'm glad it works here. I'm glad it works on all of yours. If you do this and you say portrait, or more likely you'll say landscape. Reen's got this cool 3D walk through the maze game that probably looks terrible in portrait mode. All right. So he could lock it into landscape, and so you can only play this game in landscape mode. And if you rotate, nothing happens. It just keeps merrily going on its way. It's just the user's got to do this to play it. But that's not what we want. We want to save state. So what we need to do here is add an on-save instance state method. So let's go into our code. And I've got all this code, and I want to be able to save my state. And remember, that event, that method, happens automatically whenever we go into pause mode. And remember, pause always happens before stop, always happens before destroy. So whenever we go into pause mode, it saves the state. What I'm going to do is not try to do too much typing. I'm going to right-click in the middle of nowhere, and I'm going to generate and override a method. Unfortunately, there's a ton of them. Fortunately, we can say on save, is it save state? I already forgot my notes. Save instance state is this one. On save instance state. So what I did is I typed the ONSAVE, and it kind of does a search for me till I get something that's fairly close. Here's one. On save instance state, and it should say outstate bundle. So that's the one we want. I'm going to click it and click on OK. Alternatively, if you're working at home, you could just, where to put it? There it is. You could just copy this and paste it. So what this did is created a brand new method, overrode it. It already exists. What's it doing now? Who knows? Behind the scenes, maybe it's saving those inputs somehow for me automatically so I don't have to worry about those. I wouldn't be surprised. And what it needs is information. What comes out here is a bundle. A bundle is just a class that allows us to throw just about anything in it. And when we're done, we want to make sure that we do the super on save state. So call the original on save. I'm guessing that's what does the save of the inputs. What I'm guessing. So back to my notes. I got one now. And I thought I had changed this. I got to have a version on my desktop at home that hasn't been uploaded yet, but I'll save the new version of this up here so you can look at it. This says now right click, generate, and find the onSave instant state method and bring it in. This bundle, we can add things to it by using the methods putString for strings. So any string that's on my screen, like the label, the text view, I can put into a putString. Notice what each one of these does is it creates a key value pair. I don't know if you've gotten to it yet in JavaScript, but key value pairs are like arrays, but instead of having indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they have names of a key, the state, and then a value, Wisconsin. City, value, Stevens Point. Zip code. So the key is any word that we choose, that you choose as a programmer, and then some value. When we retrieve these later, we'll have to use the same key to get them back out again. So this is like an array, except without numbers. It has words for each thing. It's almost like a class, right? Here's my member state, here's my member zip code, here's my member city. This is like an array, more like an array though. Each one of these, there's puts for ints, doubles, and strings. And according to my notes, there's others. If there's other things you need to put to the bundle, go see the bundle documentation. But for our purposes, this should suit us just fine. So here's an example. Outstate. Where did outstate come from? That's what this guy's called. This is a parameter that we're changing. It's called a pass by reference parameter. We can change it from inside of here. Now I just want to double check my notes. Does this come first or last? Probably doesn't matter as long as it doesn't go away. Let me double check. After the call to the superclass. So after the call to the superclass, we can now save stuff. So what do I want to save? I first want to save the text that's up here. And this is a text view, so it's probably stored in TV up here. And in onCreate, TV is linked to that label sample, so yes. So I want to do a first I got to start with outstate. Dot put string. Notice there's a string array list, nice. But here's string with a key value pair. That's the one I want. What do I want to call this? Label. Call it whatever you want, any word. I could call it Volker, and the next one Matt, and the next one Reed. It doesn't matter, as long as you remember what they are. And we're going to be writing the code that sucks it out here just a little bit later. The keys have to match. So the key can be anything you want. It usually makes a little more sense to give it something meaningful so you can keep all that straight. And what do I want to do? I want to get the text that's in my text view and put that in there. So text view dot get text, and I probably have to toString that. So this says go into the text view, give me the text that's in there, and stick it in a key value pair called label. And you can do that for as many strings as you want to save, remembering that you don't need to save the ones that never change. So if your loan program had results on the screen and you rotate it, ever try that? It probably works pretty good because most of your inputs are text views, or edit text, excuse me. So when you rotate the edit text whole, but all your results go away. If you wanted to retain them, you could grab the text that's in the results view, stick it into here, and then show them again later. But someday when you're bored, try that. First of all, your results screen is probably going to be off the screen someplace you'll never see it when you go sideways. All right, the next thing I want to do is change or save the color of my edit text. So the ET up there, it has a background color, and I want to save that. What type is a color? Nope. It's a hexadecimal number. Remember all the RGB values? It's a hexadecimal number, which is just an integer. So it's an integer, so we're going to do an outstate dot put int, and we'll call this back color, and I want to edit text dot get the background color, I think. Forgot how to do that. Let's see if my notes help me here. That gets me the image index. How do I get a background color? Any help? Background color. Define a variable to hold the current edit text background color. Initialize it in onCreate, in onClick add code to set it. Okay, so maybe I can get it. Let me see how I got that. Here's the set the background color.
Current color.
Current color. Ha! Even better. So I'm just going to take that variable. I just happen to have the current color, out convenient, current color in a variable. So I'm going to save it. And finally, I want the image. I want the the Donald image, or whatever the image is. I want it to stick. So I can't just say make it Donald, because if the user never clicked on it and I rotate it, would change to Donald. I don't want that. So I need to find out what the current image is, and I also created a variable for that. And again, the current image is also an integer, because remember, they're ID numbers from the R class. They're the ID numbers. So one more time, I can do this outstate dot put int image, comma, current image. So now whenever my app pauses, it's going to go through this process and save those three pieces of information every time it pauses. Remember, it pauses when some other app comes to the front, takes temporary control, takes permanent control, it pauses, or if we destroy the app. And if you rotate, it's really hard to sense this. You have to put it in the debug, actually. If you rotate, when you send messages to the debug, you'll see the debug, the last thing it says is, I'm in on destroy. Thing's been destroyed. And then on create comes back, and on resume, and all the rest of that stuff comes in there. I think it's in chapter 11, that one we were kind of briefly looking at. If you want to try it, just to see how these things cycle through, that will show you the process that they go through. All right, that's all well and good. Don't have any errors. This saves it, but how do I get it back? Notice that on create automatically receives a bundle, which happens to be just the same type as this bundle. Okay. But it's called the saved instance state, and yes, pretty sure you can go in there and change the name of that, something simpler if you want to, but it's fine. But what is it when we first start? Null. So what we can do here is say, before we do these colors and pictures, let's see if there's any saved ones. So here's my default values. I'm going to say if saved instance state is not equal to null. If it is null, meaning it doesn't exist, then let's start our program out with the ones that are already here. But if there is a saved instance state, let's get the stuff back out again. Now, how do we get it out again? Hopefully my notes will tell me. If there is, it's not null, then go get from that save instance state an integer. Instead of put an integer, get an integer, and then simply the key value. Whose integer do you want? So let's start, just for a little bit of practice here, with the picture. It's very obvious to see what's going on there. So now that we've got a saved instance state, we want to get it. And what do we want to do with that picture? We want to put it into current image. So current image equals my saved instance state dot get an integer. And what did I call it? Image. So the key is similar to a variable name, similar to a field name. In the array, go get me wherever it is in the array, go get me the thing with the label image on. This says when you come back, if there is an image, go get it, make it the current image, and then I set the images down here. Gives me a little bit of flexibility. One of the things I've been a little disappointed in, I have to say, in your Unit 5 programs is the duplicate code. I'm getting ready to change that assignment, make you put 50 pictures in there. Because then some of you are going to have read the text for picture number 47, for picture number, and then another one for, no. Get rid of that duplicate code by Unit 6. Right now, I'm letting it go. You should have a method that gets any text. You tell it inside the method which text to get, or you send it a parameter to tell it which text to get. Should not have 6, 7 get text methods that all do exactly the same thing except they get different text files. Not a good plan. Way back in programming logic beginning and then overly stressed in programming logic intermediate, if you're typing the same code over and over and over again, make a method. Figure out how to reuse it. If you're having trouble with that, let me know. So this is a little bit of reusability here. Let's test. I should have been running while I was doing my little stump lecture there. Okay, there he is. So here's my test, and that should change him to Donald. Right, now what I expect is that when I rotate my screen, Donald will stay, but this going back to initial text, and this is going to go back to yellow because I haven't restored those yet. But Donald should stay. Good. So that seems to be working. So now here we can just finish the process and go get all of the pieces. So my current color equals the saved instance state dot get an integer of back color. And finally, the text. So that would be text view dot set text. What text? Whatever's in the saved instance state dot get string called label. And I've seen examples here where there's 20, 30 different things. When there's that many, it might be worth creating a class and saving the class, but it doesn't have to be. So this is all pretty quick. It's not designed to do hundreds of things. You get a big old array of stuff. You don't save the array of images. You just let it rebuild when it comes back in again. Quick test, and then we can all take a break. Put my screen back the way it was. All right, now if all this works, my Mid-State Technical College, hello Volker, no, that'll stay anyways, but the magenta will retain, and Donald should stay. And notice it's transparent from a user's perspective. It's not like it flashes or anything. Screen rotates. The text doesn't go away, go back to the beginning, and then come back. It happens, all of this is happening in onCreate. OnCreate happens before anything shows up on the screen. Just like form load shows up before anything happens on the screen. One of the things I can promise you for sure in Unit 6, Part 6, or Part 2, Part 6, Part 2 is I'm going to ask you to save the screen state. Because this is the one that's got gestures and you're flinging, right? And you're supersizing and all that kind of stuff. Well, if I rotate my screen, it shouldn't go back to image number 0, which it would. It should stay on the image that you're on. And if you're zoomed in, it should probably stay there, though I'm not sure about that one. I've had some questions from some of you that are really interesting about how do I make this zoom? And you're getting into the animation I'm going to talk about. Some of you found the transitions and you're trying to make that zoom, but you're discovering as soon as it zooms, it goes right back to what it was before. It's not what we want. You're trying way too hard. So hopefully you're listening to this lesson. Here's the clue. More than that, here's the answer. I'm going to the layout. Maybe. And here's Mickey. Right. What do you think would happen to Mickey if I said fill or match parent? Because right now it's wrap text or wrap object or whatever, wrap something. What do you think would happen if I said fill the whole screen with him? It would fill the whole screen with him. What happens to this stuff? Gets covered up. Let's prove it. Go in here, and where's my image? Here he is. Okay, and he's aligned bottom right. That's fine, but it's wrap content. That's what's causing him to be just the right size. If I change this to match parent, oops, didn't need to run, but we'll see it. Whoa. I lied. How come he's not in front? Maybe because he started from the bottom up, I'm not sure. But what I did in mine to zoom in on the picture, I think is it double tap where you zoom? Yeah, double tap. I just take the picture and make it match the parent. And since the picture's on top, and it was probably the first one that was placed, or so, I don't know why, maybe it's a Z level or something that need to be changed. But all you have to do, is figure out how in code to change that from match parent to wrap content. And when they double tap again, you change it back. But that's the clue. You shouldn't be going into animations and transitions and all this complicated stuff just yet, because they don't stick. It's interesting that he's behind the scenes. So the one I did came to the front. And I'll bet you I know why. He's transparent. In the images that I have, no, they're transparent. So I'm not sure. Try it. If you zoom in and it gets bigger, I'm happy. I didn't say you had to cover up the text, but it'd be nice, right? If I can figure out why the text isn't covered up, there's probably some level of Z level here that covers them up, and maybe it's the background. Okay, so that's enough for that recording. Let's take a break. We'll come back and talk a little bit about animation.